Hello and welcome to another update. In this one, I'll be covering the latest updates from the front line. And starting out, we have the opposite of what happened yesterday, which is the Russian forces launched a armored Spearhead attack by the southeast of Krasnoyarivka and in this direction. So this is according to footage from the 101st Mechanized Brigade of the Ukrainian Armed Forces. They released some drone footage of this assault. So through the video, we see that the Russian forces launched multiple armored vehicles across the field from this direction, from the settlements here and westwards to all the way down to this forest line right here, where they then started getting struck by Ukrainian artillery. They had some direct confrontation with Ukrainian forces who were settled in the Dacha area here to the east of Avdiivka. And in this fight, the Russian forces, after conducting some operations here and getting hit by a lot of artillery, which caused them many losses, they then retreated back to the settlement. And in this retreat, they were also getting hit by artillery. So essentially, we can say that the outcome of this, according to the drone footage we see, as well as the pictures that are taken at the end showing the Russian losses of armored vehicles, there's an estimate of about 9 vehicles based on the footage. There is some footage that also includes some other things that are not adaptable to the YouTube guidelines, so I'll not be showing those pictures, but the ones which are viable, there's a total of 9 vehicles destroyed or abandoned or damaged, which in total is 9 compared to the footage from the Zaporizhzhia front yesterday from the Russian forces, which showed 12 Ukrainian vehicles being destroyed, damaged, or abandoned in the Zaporizhzhia front. So while the Russians are seeing some success defending in the Zaporizhzhia front, the Ukrainians are simultaneously seeing success defending in the Avdiivka area, which indicates that in this war so far, there's been no quote-unquote successful armored spearhead attack, as both sides end up getting losses and not really achieving much after launching an armored spearhead attack. They are good for removing mines, but always come at a heavy cost. This is why these small-scale attacks are not very useful. The attack needs to be able to take a few losses and then continue onwards, instead of having to retreat after a few hours of fighting with some losses and being unable to achieve anything really. And then the defending force is just going to replace the destroyed mines and cleared mines with new mines. So in the end, they achieve nothing with these assaults. The same for Ukraine, the same for Russia. They end up with heavy losses both on personnel but also in vehicles. And in the end, no one is gaining anything from this other than attrition. Then we see in other areas of the front line, starting out to the north of Robotyne, the Ukrainian armored assault yesterday managed to achieve some territorial gains here by the park. So the Ukrainian forces have managed to gain this part right here to the northeast of Robotyne. Then we also see by Velika Novosilka, the Ukrainian forces have managed to advance slightly to the south of this river line here and are closing in on the village of Priodne. And they have also managed to take this area between Makarivka and Rivnopil, so they now have a wider control over the front line, evening it out. As I mentioned in an older video, they would going to look to even out the front line, which will allow them to essentially push on each of the flanks. Then we also see by Robotyne, where they yesterday started an armored assault towards Yakovlivka. They have now also expanded this in the western direction, which indicates that they're looking to clear this northern part and try to gain control over these areas so that they can attack both in the direction of the train station to the west of Soledar and to the villages here on the western flank of the Russian northern flank of Bakhmut, as well as in the direction of Yakovlivka. So they have many options if they control this part and section right here. As for the Russian forces, they have pushed in the area west of Kreminna, and they have now entered the village of Torske, as the fighting has now reached within the village, and the Russian forces have gathered and gained a foothold on the eastern outskirts of the village. With this, they are able to start attacking in the village, and fighting continues. And as of the latest news, they have successfully managed to enter it and hold a foothold, and fighting continues. So there's currently no indication that they are retreating, but they are continuing onwards. However, the Ukrainians are putting up heavy and fierce resistance. And then finally, when it comes to these territorial changes, we see in the Berhivka area that the Ukrainian forces managed to get a foothold. According to Remy, the latest updates suggest that the Ukrainians were pushed out of the village and were pushed a couple hundred meters away from it, which would indicate that it is somewhere around here right now. However, I'm waiting for confirmation from my other sources to make sure that it is accurate. Although Remy has been very accurate so far, there is still this small bias which could quicker than usual announce a success, and then it ends up the Ukrainians counterattacking and regaining a foothold in the village, and then that update would be negated. So I'm waiting until the update is secure and that the Russian forces actually have full control over the village, if they do manage to do so. So we currently have multiple parts of the front line under heavy fighting. Starting out in the Oryhev front, we see from a topographic perspective, the Russian forces are not fighting on the high ground. The Ukrainians are the ones who have the high ground, pushing southwards, which allows them to, although fighting through the open fields, they still have a better overview than the Russian forces in this area. Then we have by the Velika Novosilka area, where here the Russian forces again have been pushed away from the high ground, which allows the Ukrainian forces to now take and reap the benefits of the high ground, which allows them to then make operations where they have better overview and essentially have a higher chance for success. As for the Bakhmut area, we see here that the heights to the southeast of Berhivka and west of Berhivka are still under the Russian control, which means that the Ukrainian forces, whenever they fight through this area, they're actually fighting downhill, especially once they cross this river canal line here. They are going to be fighting a uphill battle, which makes it more difficult for them, which is why the Russian forces are so far able to hold on to the area. As for the Rostolivka area, we see that the area right straight to the north of Soledar, there's this high ground, and Rostolivka is benefiting from this high ground. The same with Yakovlivka. So essentially the Russian forces are fighting a level battle with the Ukrainians here. So the Ukrainian push, which we have seen over the past few days here by Rostolivka, is on a leveled field, which means that they are fighting on equal footing, although the Ukrainians are the ones attacking in this part of the front line. And then finally, in the direction of Tversk, here the Russian forces are not having the high ground, as the Ukrainian forces hold the high ground by the village itself, as well as to the north in the direction of Yakovlivka. They have the high ground, while the Russian forces are going to be fighting uphill. Although most of the area is actually leveled, it is fairly flat, which means that although the Ukrainians have the high ground, it's not by a lot. And that is all of the topographic details about this so far. And that is going to be all for this update. Thank you all for watching and have a great day.